Ben Linder Solidarity School class number 10. Can you believe it? A wonderful space for re-encounter and encounter of friends and brothers and sisters. Today we've made a really huge effort to have some very special women leaders from the ATC with us. I'm going to, Esperanza, I'm going to put your microphone on mute because I think there's some background noise there. Hold on just a sec. I'm also going to mute a few other folks here. So today we're going to open with a short Mística, and then I will introduce our speakers, and then we'll have time for a conversation with them. And then the last part of our class today will be guided by a group of young women who are part of Friends of the ATC, who have been part of the coordinating team for this course, who are going to facilitate a conversation about next steps. So we can start now the Mística with the video, and then Marjorie, who's a part of the ATC Youth, will read a text.
Summary. Can I hear you?
Por los senderos del campo llevas cargando tu pena de amor y de llanto, en tu vientre de arcilla y tierra, tu tinajita redonda que llenas año con año de la semilla que siembra el campesino en su pobreza. Y hoy quiero cantarte, María Rural, oh madre del campo, madre sin igual. Hoy quiero cantar tus vástagos pobres, tus despojos tristes, dolor maternal. Desnutrición y pobreza es lo que a vos te rodea. Choza de paja en silencio, solo el rumor de las selvas. Tus manos son de cedro, tus ojos crepúsculos tristes, tus lágrimas son de barro que derramas en la ciénaga. Por esa razón, en esta ocasión, hoy quiero cantar. Y desolación. Por las praderas y ríos va la madre campesina, sintiendo frío el invierno y terrible es su destino. Por los senderos del campo llevas cargando tu pena de amor y de llanto, en tu vientre de arcilla y tierra. Y hoy quiero cantarte, María Rural, oh madre del campo, madre sin igual. Hoy quiero cantar tus vástagos pobres, tus despojos tristes, dolor maternal.
Arlen Siu, símbolo de la convicción
Arlen
revolucionaria.
Siu, a symbol of revolutionary conviction. Women also fought for their ideas and proposals, being a vanguard in battle for a more just and egalitarian homeland. In Jinotepe Carazo, the young militant Arlen Siu Bermudez, who became a revolutionary guerrilla fighter and one of the most remembered martyrs of the Sandinista People's Revolution. Arlen, a young girl of noble heart, was 18 when she joined the noble ranks of the Sandinista Front for National Liberation. She concluded high school and decided to study social psychology at the National Autonomous University, UNAN Managua. She also had an artistic vocation that led her to write poems such as Maria Rural. During her youth and childhood, she showed a passion for helping the poorest people. She learned to play the accordion, the guitar, the flute, and also painted and wrote poetry. With her voice, guitar, and song, she denounced the atrocious crimes committed by the Somocista National Guard against the people of Nicaragua. This young guerrilla made Nicaragua, the child of a Chinese immigrant and a Nicaraguan mother, showed her love by teaching poor people in rural areas how to read and write. And she also had a hunger strike at the capital of Managua in 1972. During the devastating earthquake of that year, she took care of her earthquake victims in Carazo. She was the essence of nobility and rebellion, and she pursued the dream of freedom for an entire people. Her revolutionary conscience remained in the camps by taking provisions and clothes to people. She is a distinguished figure of Nicaragua's female history and part of the fight for social and egalitarian rights, for freedom, independence, and sovereignty. This young militant left an indelible imprint on the country's history during the bitter period of the Somoza dictatorship. Her guitar served to denounce Somoza's crimes and the crimes of his National Guard. Disappearances, tortures, murders, rapes of women perpetrated by this military body created by the United States against the peasants and the members of the Sandinista Front for National Revolution. Her unbending fight was out of love for the people of Nicaragua, and she went to the mountains of León, where she fell in combat heroically. The National Guard was close to El Sauce on August 1st, 1975, and found a group of young combatants, including Arlen, who was mowed down at 20 years of age, including with Maria Estrada, Silva Prostram, Julia Herrera de Pomares, Mercedes Reyes, Hugo Arevalo, Juan Leonia Espinosa. Arlen, presente, presente, presente. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Marjorie.
Thank you very much, Marjorie.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone again. Thank you for your attention to that Mística in honor of all Nicaraguan women, Sandinista women who have struggled for the liberation of this country and continue to defend its sovereignty. Today we have the honor of listening to the words of women leaders who are part of the Rural Workers Association, or APC, which is the organization that has been the true inspiration for the Ben Linder Solidarity School. I'm going to make an introduction. We did have one change in our speaker list. Lola Esquivel was originally on the list, but she had to make a last minute cancellation because she had some last minute commitments come up with her cooperative. So we wish her well and wish that she was with us today. And we know many of you have been able to meet her. We called Connie Baez, who's a leader from the Chontales department, last night to join us, and she's making a huge effort to be here with us, although there's lots of rain in that part of the country. So she was here for a minute. Looks like she's disconnected. So we'll see if she can get connected during the time of this session. But regardless of the technical difficulties, we will continue forward. So I'll make an introduction of our speakers. All three women today are part of the ATC's National Directorate and are also leaders at the departmental level in some of the most productive farming regions of the country. In the northern coffee growing departments of Matagalpa and Jinotega, as well as in the central region where Connie is from, which is the cattle raising region that produces the country and really the Central American region's meat and dairy. So we have Esperanza Ruiz with us. She is the Secretary General of the ATC Matagalpa Federation. She's also a member and leader in the Rural Women's Farmer Cooperative, which is a cooperative of a group of women that are principally coffee farmers, but also grow fruits, vegetables, basic grains. And then we also have Rosa Pina Gutierrez with us. She's the Secretary General of the ATC Federation in Jinotega. She's also the president of the May 1st Cooperative, which is also another cooperative that's largely predominantly coffee farmers. And then hopefully Connie Baez will be able to reconnect with us. She is the Secretary of Women in the ATC Chontales Federation, and she's also a professor at IALE Chimoleo, which is the agroecology school that's coordinated here by the ATC in Nicaragua, in which we had a class session specifically focused on this a few weeks ago with Marlon Sanchez and Yesenia Batzebe from El Salvador. All three of these women represent people or women who started out as workers in the agricultural sector, but demonstrated leadership skills and gradually worked their way up in the organization in the ATC to become departmental and national leaders with the organization. And they're also graduates of the program that's called ProForja, which I'll say it in Spanish, Programa de Formación Jurídica Acelerada, or the Accelerated Program in Lawyer Training, which was a program that was coordinated by the ATC at the Francisco Morazan International Peasant Worker School, which many of you have had the chance to come to know in your visits, your internships, our delegations here in Nicaragua, and is a true example of the training that the ATC organizes. So there are leaders of the ATC who are also trained lawyers. Also, it's important to mention that all three are militants of the FSLN, the Sandinista Front for National Liberation, and have leadership roles within their municipalities and can speak to the ways in which the Sandinista Popular Revolution has benefited the lives of women, both in rural and urban areas in a number of ways. So without further ado, I'll pass the floor over to our first speaker, who will be Esperanza, who is joining us today from Matagalpa. Esperanza, the floor is yours. Vamos a abrir tu micrófono, Esperanza. No lo escuchamos. Todavía está. Ahora sí. Ahora sí. Adelante.
Buen día.
Good morning.
La escuchamos.
¿Sí me escuchan?
We can hear you.
Excelente.
So you can hear me? Yes, very well.
Ay, no sé qué pasó.
I'm sorry, I don't know what's happening.
La escuchamos bien.
We can hear you very well.
Buen día.
Hello, good morning.
Ahora sí. Yo no
Can
escucho.
you hear me now? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear anything. I apologize, but now we're okay? Okay. It is an honor and a privilege to be with you today. It's very gratifying to be able to express all of the good and lovely things that have been part of our experiences and our work, what we have gone through, what we have learned and developed with our organization, the ATC, which has been so important in our lives. I am very proud to extend greetings to Magda. Magda, who has been so close to us from our department of Matagalpa here in northern Nicaragua. And greetings to all of the people that I have not had the pleasure of meeting in person, but I know that we are all people who are in this struggle together. And we're very pleased to work together on these issues that are so important for the lives of people and for the lives of our families and for our individual lives as women. Here in Matagalpa, where I live, this is a department in which the main revenue is from coffee cultivation. In our organization, our union, most of the people here are men and women who are employees of the coffee plantations. This is where we in the ATC are working with the unions, and then we also have men and women who are organized to cultivate their land and produce food. We are taking care of our Mother Earth, and we are primarily producing foods without the use of agrotoxins or fertilizers, no chemical fertilizers. This is a very beautiful section of Nicaragua where we have been able to carry out various activities. Many of these activities have improved our living conditions and our access to rights. I've been involved since a very young age. My parents worked the land, and I learned about the ATC through them. Since I was very small, I saw very important things happening, which motivated me and some very important causes that the ATC was working for the good of people whose rights were being violated. People who were getting fired from their jobs on the coffee plantations, whose rights were not respected, and there was no recognition for the work of women. This was a situation in which these things motivated me to learn more about the ATC. From a very young age, I learned about what our organization was doing, and that ever since it was founded, right away when it was established, the ATC organized the movement of rural women through the department-based secretariats. And these secretariats wanted to work directly on women's issues to defend and organize women. And I've shared experiences with these women. I've not only participated in these, but I've also been able to defend it with my voice and vote. They not only opened up a space for us, but also this space has been enriched and maintained. In other words, we women are on the path to empowerment, and we're also using action to secure our rights. And part of this I saw was after I studied, after I got an education, I participated in the education and training program that was coordinated by the ATC. This was the Proforja program, and it gave us professional training as attorneys and notaries. After working in this, we organized the union, implementing or putting into practice everything that we had learned, and this is how we became established professionals. It is very important to be able to tell you how valuable this experience was and how valuable our organization was in our work in the countryside. And I'm saying this because we have had the opportunity to learn and to develop, but also to work with many other people who are also in a position, who have been in a position to request support with our work with the unions and with work with our groups to work against intra-family violence or domestic violence, against workplace harassment and everything. So all of this has been very important because it's not just that we created this organization, and ours is not the only one. There are many other organizations that are out there, but they do not include the component, these other components that our organization works on. They have different purposes and objectives. But the organization that is really working with the most vulnerable people within the countryside is our organization. At present, I am the Secretary General of the Union Federation of Coffee Workers in Matagalpa. We have 26 unions within us. All of these are from big businesses, and they're working for better wages per basket of picked coffee, everything to improve their living conditions in the countryside. This is what we're trying to do despite sometimes difficult circumstances that have arisen and which have caused a deterioration in our living standards and working conditions. But we have continued to be more effective, and it's been even more important to carry out our work. At present, I am also the president of a women's cooperative. It's only women members. In this, we also have a coffee processing plant to give added value to our product. And we also have very good involvement, but it's also very tasty. And this takes into account everything that goes into improving the lives of women. And we hope that we will also be able to increase by producing more food. In food production, what we try to do with our plots of land is have a crop diversity to make sure that we do not fall short on fruits, vegetables, squash, beans, and everything, and then we market this. But the main thing is to take care of our lives, our health, and our families. But we also need to make sure that our land is more profitable so that we can improve the family income. And in this way, this is how we work, but we don't only work this way through my cooperative. There are other cooperatives that have been organized and are working very hard on this. And we know that at this critical moment when we have adverse policies or conditions that cause a deterioration in our work, no, we are producing food. We have our food secured. We have our corn and beans and fruits and vegetables. I can currently tell you that what the most important thing was that the ATC has done. The most important is thing that it included in its work strategy and its mission, and that is to work with women and youth. And with these components, it has been easier and more interesting to be able to carry out our revolutionary struggle, because the revolutionary struggle and political struggle that we currently have underway in Nicaragua with our government and the Vice President, Rosario Murillo, these are also components that we see are all complementary.
They have been complementary in the development of the activities, and we're talking about the component of women. Women have an active participation and youth have an active participation. the acknowledgement that we have received in each department through our leaders, our revolutionary leaders and representatives in each department, mayors, deputies, and such. It's a massive recognition of the work done, and not just because they say it themselves, but also because they involve us in this work. They accompany us, they are with us, and call us to also be a part of this axis, of this component of this dimension of work, the models that our Sandinist front has when it comes to the work carried out with women, with youth, and with all of the organized people. When there are things, for example, certain health activities, we've had now the experience, we've gone through the COVID situation when health issues come up, not only sanitary crisis, but also other types of crisis. Our organization is called on, and it's acknowledged that we can work with our people, and we try to see what it is that they do, which strategies we will implement in our work, political work, organizational work, and the work of the party. And the organizational work has been the best so far, even in the face of the rains that we have had lately, because this has been a very strong winter. We have also consultations with the deputies, and the government goes there not only as a side of hope, but also as representatives of our organization. We visit the affected families and the houses that are being more strongly hit by the strong rains, both in the city and in the countryside. So this is not just about saying, well, it could be that we would eventually do. No, these are facts, words, and we are very proud to be the representatives and to do the work we do. They always tell us it's very important. Sometimes they don't call other leaders. They say, no, this is how we like that you work because you have an organizational model, and this organizational model of the ATC has been very important for years, since up until the current days, and we will continue doing this work, being very careful with our work in terms of communication, unity. The work that has been implemented so far is something that we will defend. We want that our youth can carry on the work that we have been doing. We want them to continue and to continue doing everything that we have done so far, but to also take steps forwards in facing new challenges, because we know that situations change and we have new technologies, new systems. So we also have to learn to work better every day and not just stay content with what we have already achieved. We need to open ourselves up to new ways of working, and it might not be easy with the new generations. Sometimes we say the systems or the policies or the way of working of the leaders, well, some of them might not like this, but for us, it is very important that the people who have been growing and where new people become organized, they also share a mission, they can provide a strategy and a political identity, an organizational identity, and mainly that we remain loyal to our people, loyal to the work at every time, because it is only in this way that we might confront difficulties and be, as we say, in our land, in our planet, standing firm. And if we are strong, if our roots are strong, and our ideology is strong, that's how we can be sure that we will convince others and we'll be able to work. And as we say, again, it's not just about sharing words. Examples and words, they must complement each other to prove a fact and sustain it. Our organization has created facts and granted rights in a very sustainable way. They are tangible for our people. And this is the closest thing to reality for life, for the improvement of the quality of life in the countryside, the work that is done every day. We need to remain always active, always joyful and motivated to continue on forwards with women, and especially considering the issues of violence in the families and the violence faced every day, so that we can continue working then joyfully and motivated with them to ensure a positive result. This positive result is not just obtained by organizing people, but also through ensuring communication. And in this communication, to respond and react to what they need and trying to find solutions to the problems and issues faced. So I don't know if you have any doubts. I think I have mentioned certain things that are very important. I could also share some things about myself as an individual. I was able to study thanks to this drive, this opportunity that I was given, both within the organization as well as a member of the party. When alphabetization in Nicaragua took place, I was part of that program. We didn't go to school because we were a very large family and they could not afford to pay the school for all of us. That meant that I wasn't able to go to school because I didn't have the resources to pay for it. So we were alphabetized, an important step taken by the Sandinist revolution. And after that, I got to know the ATC and I continued with my studies. That is what presented before me the opportunities to be able to grow and implement what I've learned with our organization in the political spaces that I have been part of, where I have also felt respected and accepted. I believe my work is respected and our work is admired and congratulated. And that makes us more committed and makes us also able to take on more commitment to continue on working on the department with women, with men, and with organized youth. So if you have any questions you'd like to, anything you'd like to ask or anything else, there's a lot to share, but I think there's a moment, there's always a moment that we can find to continue on interacting, I think. Very well, Esperanza, thank you very much.
For that powerful summary of the power of the ATC in the Department of Matagalpa, and also sharing a little bit about your personal connections to the organization, how you got involved, and how the quality of life has improved for Nicaraguans over time, thanks to the processes of popular organizations like the ATC, as well as the other processes that make up the Sandinista Popular Revolution. I'm not going to extend too much right now. I'd rather give the floor to our next speaker, who's Rosalpina Gutierrez, who's joining us from the ATC in the Department of Jinotega, who is the Secretary General for the Federation in the neighboring northern department to Matagalpa. So Rosalpina, you have the floor. If you could open your microphone as well as your camera so that we can see you, and the floor is yours.
Ok, pues voy a estar presente. Buenos días.
Good morning
Felicitaciones.
and congratulations, Erika, for this school. I'm honored to be here, and I want to thank God because we are alive and we are here communicating. I don't know who's listening right now, but for me, it's a pleasure, it's an honor to very humbly be able to share. And I think this is, I feel it also as an acknowledgement, recognition for my organization to be able to share the life I've had through the struggle of the union. Most of my life has been devoted to the struggle of the unions. I'm Rosalpina Gutierrez from the municipality of Jinotega. It's called Jinotega, but the department is also called, it has the same name. The department of Jinotega has 8 municipalities, and among them, the main municipality is also called Jinotega. I became a member of the ATC when I was still a child, 17 years old, and waiting also for my second child. My first child I had when I was 15, and I was working in a coffee farm, already with my kid, already struggling to sustain us all. I didn't have studies at the time. I hadn't gone beyond the 2nd grade. Though that was my beginning, and I am infinitely thankful to God and also to this organization. There was already an ATC at the time in these farms. The Sandinista front was already there, and because thanks to my age, I've had the possibility to experience what Somoza's dictatorship was. I was a child at the time, and I saw things they did, things that the guard did and how they treated the workers of the countryside. They worked 12 hours, men. Women weren't even allowed to go to work. These are the things that I could see in the coffee plantations. And I could see at the time that my stepfather, who worked on those farms, he came in the afternoon with just a handful of beans that were in bad condition, and that was the food that we received from the company man of the coffee plantations of Jinotega. Once I had my daughter, I went back to work, and when I was just getting started, I remember there was a meeting called for the CDS, I think was the name, and they were talking about the importance of the union. They had a meeting, an assembly. I was a very young girl, very quiet, almost didn't speak. And everyone said Rosalpina, and then in the end I became part of the union. And ever since then we've been working and struggling. We went to places where the company man had abandoned the plantations because the Sandinist front was in power. These farms were abandoned. They took from the banks the money, the value of the farms, and then they escaped to the US. We began working on these farms. They were called property of the people, where the union could negotiate with the administration that wasn't their chief anymore. There were a few leaders there, people who were very, very capable and very strong, such as Bernardino Diaz. They were members of the ATC. And then there was always a push. If the employer wasn't there, we had certain leaders that pushed to gain power. But not everything was like this. It was part of the process. Some of them left themselves, and others were expelled. That's how I began working since 1982 until 1984. I moved to León. I had another child. And since the work was very difficult, it was very hard, and I couldn't continue on with both my kids, then I went back to Jinotega and continued working, always in these coffee companies. I remember I came back in November 1986, and in January, they had a meeting. I began working as preschool teacher in a CDI where the children of the women were taken care of, the women who were working, because the men had gone to the front of the war. They had taken arms to defend the revolution. That meant women were left in charge of the production. But we had one office that's was called the Center for Child Development, CDI, and I started working there. And in January, then we had an assembly. I was invited there as a newcomer, and I think this was a decision by God. It was my fate. And again, they just voted for me without actually knowing me or knowing who I was. And that's how I became a member of this union. And let me tell you, I'm 56 years old, and I have never stopped working for the ATC, and I never stopped being a member of the union. The ATC educated me, prepared me as health worker as well. I was taught traditional medicine. I also was trained in the different aspects that have to do with the work in the union, and in the struggle I continued on learning a lot of things. I learned about women's rights, working rights, labor rights, also in the process of the struggles that we initiated as union leaders. I even became a leader myself of a group from a farm, and the people kept looking for me because I was always willing to be a volunteer. I was called on as a health specialist and as a union member, and I want to say that the ATC contributed a lot to my training and education due to the programs they had. That's why we always promote the youth becoming involved in this, because these are things that are always useful for each one individually, but also to help other people and to improve the position of the families. In the 90s, then we were defeated. We had these properties, they were state properties, and we continued struggling. We went from here, from Jinotega to Managua on foot. That took 9 days in the struggle for the defense of property, and so that there could be a wage increase for the rural workers in coffee plantations. And that was for all of Nicaragua. This became a national demonstration. That's how we continued on in the struggle. We were at the front of this march. We were at the forefront of the struggle for property, for land ownership, at the front of the National Assembly, asking of Doña Violeta. She won in the 90s, and it was the first time that I heard this word, privatization. I didn't know what that meant. And what it meant was that she was going to return the farmlands to their owners, and we would be left out on the street. That's when the unions in Jinotega united strongly to see what they would do, because you can imagine some union leaders who had pushed these owners out, it would have been impossible for them to be accepted back. And then we had a union, not of the ATC, but of the union leaders. And I continue on struggling there with a group of leaders. Some of them still live to this day, others have passed away. But we've also had a lot of young people becoming involved. We as a federation promote the involvement of men and women, and preferably women, because we are the ones that have less opportunities, not because of the organization doesn't give us opportunities, but just because culture is like that. We have this burden that makes it more difficult for women to get there and to stay involved in a struggle. Because then who takes care of the children? I was practically alone by myself raising my children because I was always solving everyone else's conflicts except my own. So then I was never at home. I was always in different training instances. I was part of a training process of the ATC of formal company administration for 3 years. I traveled to Managua one week each month with my 3 children. I also left them there. I had also lessons, and I traveled to Managua to study. And that's how I finished this degree of social administration of companies. And I want to say that that helped me a lot because I was able to better manage the income that I have, thank God, and to also better manage and organize my home. This also strengthened my character because I had to face a lot of difficulties within the companies and within society. 16 years of neoliberalism for us. This was very difficult, but we never gave up. 16 years on the forefront of this organization. Let me tell you that the neoliberals at their peak, they wanted to do away with us, but we were together, we were united. Here in Jinotega, we say we have the blessing to have a group of volunteers that help us do the work, and they are there. And of course, they're not in the office because we all need to survive and sustain ourselves. But we have volunteers in each community, in each work center, and when needed, they become active immediately, and we are willing to struggle. That's how, with this 16 years, these were very difficult years. It was very difficult to continue sustaining and affording the studies of my 3 children, but I managed to do it. It was a very difficult situation. During the time of the neoliberals, education was privatized and health was privatized. If you became ill, even if you wanted to buy, you had to buy absolutely everything. If you were going to be operated, for example, you had to buy the instruments of the operation and every single pill you had to take. And it was very difficult. When we had to vaccinate our children, I had 3 kids. Each one was 15 pesos, so that meant 45 pesos. And my wages were 300 pesos a month. And of course, with every single thing that added, I became angry because I didn't know how to do the worst. And that also drove me to anger many times. It was difficult. But we never gave up. And we never negotiated. We never kneeled down to this government. We continued on struggling. And in 2005, we received the title of property that we have. It's part of my plot, my land. And we promoted cooperative work. We were always opposed and blocked, but we managed to create more than 100 cooperatives in Jinotega in the entire department. Some are still there, others don't exist anymore. Some of them are working together with the government and the Ministry of Family Economy. And so it is that that all of these years have gone by since 1986 up until now. And we were always in this process of working with the people on the countryside, with the rural workers, the producers. In 2007, I was nominated as a candidate as a deputy in several departments because thank God, there's a lot of acknowledgement and recognition from the people on the countryside. And the liberal government always spied on us. They always were very aware of everything that we were doing, but they never detained us. So that's how I was able to be also nominated as a counselor or a member of the city council. We, even under threat and very afraid of becoming, I was never president, for example, because I didn't like to win. I didn't like to be I have always been involved in the different election processes. I have never stopped participating and being involved in the election process. And it's difficult for us, for women, to do this. And when we find a young woman that thrives, that continues working, we know that it's difficult, but we tell her that she needs to continue, because it's very difficult for a woman to sustain herself, and it hasn't been easy, but I'm very proud to be part of this organization and of this struggle. And I don't know if my time is up. I have my plot with coffee. Since I'm alone, I work it halfway. I have a small farm with chickens that whenever you want eggs, we have them here. I have some animals. I plant coffee, corn, and beans, some to eat, but also to be an example, because one of the mottos of ADC is defend the land, not to sell it. If you have a plot, you have gold in your hands. Your food is insured, and you can eat what you produce. So I don't know if my time is up. If you have any questions, we are also here to answer.
Muchas gracias, Rosalpina.
Very well, thank you very much, Rosalpina.
And thank you one more time to Esperanza. We have about 15 minutes now for question and answer. I also want to say that myself and others and friends of the ATC have seen with our own eyes the organizing as well as the production of food that both Esperanza and Rosalpina are responsible for in their respective departments. I've drank cups of coffee produced both by Esperanza and by Rosalpina, and they both produce wonderful coffee, eggs, medicinal plants, lovely fruits, tropical fruits from the countryside. So myself and others I know can be testaments to that. So it looks like we have a couple questions already here in the chat, and you're welcome to write if you have additional questions in the chat box function, which we've been using in all of our classes. So there's a couple questions here. One question is about what is the relationship between the ATC as an organization with MEFCA, which is the Ministry of the Familiar and Cooperative Economy here in Nicaragua. Carissa is also asking about the situation of violence against women and domestic violence in Nicaragua, I think particularly in the countryside. And then the third question that we've received so far is about the situation of youth So what is the role of youth in this struggle and with the organizing of rural workers in general? So hopefully both Esperanza and Rosalpina could hear that okay. I don't know if Esperanza or Rosalpina, who would like to speak first? Esperanza, voy a abrir su micrófono.
Esperanza, I'm going to turn on your microphone. Still no microphone. Now can you hear me?
Yo estoy contestando.
No, I'm answering.
Sí, buen día.
Yes, I'm answering. Yes, good morning.
Aló,
Okay,
buen
yes,
día.
says Erica. We'll hear from Esperanza and then Rosalpina. Yes, we can hear you.
Yo no escucho.
I'm sorry, but I cannot hear you.
Ah,
We can hear you, says Erica.
sí,
Okay,
ok, bueno.
all right
No
then.
los escucho a ustedes. Yo quiero
Problem is I can't always hear you. I would like to refer to the last question about domestic violence.
que ocurre, ¿verdad? Que vivimos a diario.
A situation that we experience every day, both in the city and countryside, and what's being done about it. I want to tell you that as an organization, through the Rural Women's Organization, we have been continuously involved in training and prevention of domestic violence under the banner of empowerment of women. We are trying to empower women to let them know that they are proactive beings who have agency and they have economic rights, and they are changing their ideals. They are changing this culture which sometimes drags us down and subjects us to things and can have very difficult consequences that we're all familiar with. So it's a matter of training and becoming close to people and building trust with women and with families. We do not only work on this through training with women, but also with men as well, because this is an issue that you have to work on with a holistic approach, with the whole family, for families, and with families. This is a priority of great importance, and we train people to understand the laws that we have, the family code, and the law to punish violence against women. So this is something that people need to know when they find themselves in this kind of situation. The other thing is that women participate directly and they are protagonists. They are subjects who can get resources to work and to free themselves of dependence, because dependence is the worst kind of situation a woman can find herself in. It increases domestic violence, economic dependence, and very many aspects of our culture need to be overcome. But it's not just this, but it's another important aspect that we're working on today in Nicaragua, because this has also been a priority of the Sandinista Front for National Liberation. This work in coordination with the FSLN. So now we're collecting signatures for the proposal for a bill that's proposed in Nicaragua, which seeks to punish or correct, but above all, to impose a life sentence on people who perpetrate these types of violent crimes called hate crimes, because when there's rapes of girls and rapes and killings of women. So we're working to make sure that this law will be passed in Nicaragua. We have also had or made a lot of progress in terms of improving the legislation to prevent and punish these crimes. But it's not just a matter of passing laws. we need to work on prevention work. We need to organize people, and we need to work hand in hand with families and women to improve their situation. But we want women to be the main protagonists in this. They need to know what can help them out of this kind of situation, to remove themselves from this kind of situation. So I was just looking at the last part of the questions, but Rosalpina might want to address the other part of this. What else can explain this? When we established this Benjamin Linder Solidarity School, I was very impressed by this, and for several years, well, I was at Ben Linder's funeral here in Nicaragua at his wake when he was murdered because they brought his body to Matagalpa, and I remember his wake. And I'm very pleased to see that this Solidarity School bears his name. And his wake was held in the Coffee Museum here in Matagalpa. So I just wanted to tell you that. And I'm so pleased that this school bears his name. So I don't know whether, I hope that this answers some of the questions, and I could now give the floor to Rosalpina if she wants to complement my remarks. Yes, hello?
Bueno,
All right.
pues cada momento para la lucha sindical,
Each period in the struggle for union rights here in Nicaragua, we've always had union leaders assassinated and run out of their jobs. And I said that I had the opportunity to live and taste those different stages of our struggle. From the 1980s to the 1990s, the union struggle was so heated in Nicaragua that the union movement was really running the show here in Nicaragua, and business owners really did what the unions told them to do. But it was also like negotiating with a gun to your head because everyone was armed. In the 1990s, we had to find a strategy because the union leaders were persecuted and some of them killed. I was not an exception, and I wish it didn't exist, but thank God we've been able to find strategies of resistance, and we've been able to have this resistance and find leaders in our community and at our workplaces. If we can't find them in the workplaces, we find them in the community, and they get trained, they get visited, and they need to have close accompaniment and monitoring, and the economic aspect comes in, and we didn't have money for this, but it was harder to communicate at that time. We didn't have cell phones, and we didn't have other means that we have, like right now, this video conference. For those of us in Jinotega as part of the union movement do not find things easier because people just use WhatsApp, and our cell phones aren't strong enough to be able to send people a lot of programs. So we just communicate over WhatsApp, and that's it. We do have it. Young people might have more access, but most people don't. So at all of these different stages of our history, we've had a strategy since the 1990s to 2006, and then up to 2007. It was difficult. We met with the FNP, and we made little steps forward to progress in our struggle. Then in 2018, 2020, I do feel that the union movement and maybe this is just my personal viewpoint, but I feel that at least in Jinotega, the union movement has fallen off a little bit because in 2018, the business owners took advantage of the opportunity to fire a lot of their permanent workforce. And now we have new workers, and sometimes people get transferred from one department to another or from one municipality to another. So the consolidation of our union movement has been hit by this, but with the support of young people, because there was also a question about how you engage young people. Yes, there are young people. And I forgot to tell you in the other part, I don't know that I fell in love with the organization too much because I got my two daughters involved, and one of them, Yuri, she's the one who did the Mystica, and my other daughter as well. So we've known about this in the union movement. They are younger, and there is a group of young people who are communicators, and also a group of young people who are agroecology promoters. As I said, we don't pay them. We would like to be able to, but they are volunteers. But it's hard to withstand the crisis that we're going through. But I don't know if it's just my perception. I can't really speak on a large scale for the whole ATC throughout all of Nicaragua. But from the viewpoint of the ATC Jinotega, I believe that the union movement is going through a crisis. And we have to negotiate with the business owners, and we have to give in on something. It's not like it was before that the unions would go in, and if we liked, we established a union whether the business owners liked it or not. But now we have to get into a dialogue with the business owners to see if they'll give us permission, and they almost never do. If they do give us permission, then they fire the union leaders. And there is an article that allows employers to fire union leaders. So these are things that work against us. However, the young people are involved. They are involved. And as I said last time, I don't remember who was saying this in an interview, this office is not going to close down. We hope, and we will continue to work, and we will stay in the struggle in resistance. Very well. Thank you, Esperanza and Rosalpina.
It looks like we have run out of time. I think there are still a few more good questions here in the chat that we will make sure that we get answered for everyone. But I just want to see if Esperanza and Rosalpina could give us any final words that they'd like to share with the Ben Linder Solidarity School. We have people joining us here from many different countries who have dedicated Saturdays throughout August, September, and October to the construction of internationalism with the ATC, with Nicaragua, with the Sandinista Revolution, and with other peasant organizations that make up the Coloquia Campesina. So let's see, maybe Rosalpina first, because I see that your microphone's open, and then we'll close with Esperanza.
Pues decirles.
Well, I'd like to tell you, thank you. As I said at the beginning, I feel that this is giving recognition to the ATC, the whole life of the ATC, it's all its history. But I also want to recognize the fact that you're making us feel that we're not alone here. The ATC isn't alone here in the world. There are so many people. We have had the opportunity to meet the young people who have come to visit us, including Erica, whom we're so grateful to. And there are other, if there, you know any young people who want to come here, and we have young people here with the experience of those of us adults. We're at your service to help however we can. I want to thank you. And this fills us with commitment and pride to go forward with our willingness to work on this. We know we're not alone. We know that there is solidarity, and there are young people like you, Erica, looking for a way to help us out like people did in the 1980s. Thank you. Thank you very much, Rosalpina.
Let's open your microphone and again.
Sí, siento que como
Yes, I feel. Uh-oh, the microphone turned off.
No la escuchamos. Esperanza, ¿puede abrir el micrófono?
Ya.
Ahora sí, sí.
Okay, now we can hear you.
sí,
Now you can hear me?
un poco sobre eso.
I just wanted to say a little bit about that. I want to talk about the ministry for the family and community and cooperative economy. Their work on production, coffee production, food production, seasonal citric fruit, and all the planting seasons, corn, beans, and everything that has to do with the rotation of seeds. And the natural fertilizers that have been used, and these have been part of government projects, and also how this is linked to our organization in the selection of families and particularly women to participate. For example, with the program giving people a pregnant sow and a pregnant cow and areas of their family garden, the plot of land around their home to plant. And so we work on helping them select the families and women who want to be involved in this, who always wanted and needed. And also, and it's not just providing resources, but also having access to training and to complement the training that's offered by the cooperative. So everything that is related to the cooperative, farming cooperative movements, selection, processing of transactions. We have to make this expeditious. A few years ago in Nicaragua, one had to go to the capital to do all of these procedures. Now we have a ministry of the family and cooperative economy in each community that provides support to families. Now, as regards the ministry of the family, they also have a role to play. This is they look at the administrative steps. These administrative steps have to do with resolving problems. This is talking about the Ministry of the Family for psychosocial support. So we're looking at problems that children and women may be facing in terms of failure to pay child support. So there are programs that are carried out in each department with support from the government, and they provide food to low-income families. They also do this through the schools. So that's the coordination that we have with the Ministry of the Family, establishing direct ties with families and providing responses and support to families in need. So I hope that that answers that question. And I want to thank all of you for listening to us and for giving us the opportunity to tell you about our life experiences. We hope that you'll come and visit us soon. As Magda said, we know that you've tasted our coffee, and she's accompanied us in many things here in Matagalpa and helped us to go forward improving women's rights, including the organization of rural people, many important things. She's been with us all along the way. So I'm not going to let you down with our coffee, which is very delicious, and I hope you get a chance to taste it. Very well. Thank you, Esperanza.
So one more time, thank you so much to Rosaltina and Esperanza for being with us today. We hope that we'll be able to share more time with both of you, and we hope that in the very near future, we will begin to receive a lot more international visitors here in Nicaragua again, so that we can go up to the northern departments of Matagalpa and Jinotega. Esperanza and Rosaltina, we're now going to move on to a conversation here with the participants of the Ben Linder Solidarity School. You're welcome to stay for the conversation. So transitioning now to this next part of the class, as we've been discussing now for a couple of weeks, a big objective of this school is the construction of internationalism, which can take a number of different forms. And this school has been coordinated by a group of young people who make up Friends of the ATC. And you'll finally get to hear from a few of them today who have been working almost every day behind the scenes to make the school work. Hopefully you can hear me. There's lots of background noise from the construction. Sorry to our interpreters, but also a big thank you to them. So because there's so much background noise here, I won't say too much. Other than that, this conversation is going to be led by Jenny Beckenstein, who's joining us from the LA area, Cardina Lopez, who's joining us from Texas, and Betty Furman, who's joining us from Rhode Island. All three of them have been to Nicaragua with us, others interns or with affiliates, and represent a very strong commitment that they've made to the Friends of the ATC and the ATC after having spent time here in Nicaragua. So we'll have the rest of the time with them, and if we run out of time today, there will still be time in the following week. We have dedicated another half an hour to this conversation. So if for any reason we ran out of time today, just remind Jenny and Cardina and Betty that we have extra time in the coming weeks. And this is the last time I'll speak for today. So I want to share a quick announcement. Next week, we'll also put this via email. Next week, this is very important. We have Peter Rossett joining us, who is a long-term militant of Via Campesina, who is part of the international staff team, but he was also here in Nicaragua in the 1980s during the first phase of the Sandinista Revolution. But he's joining us from Asia. So we are going to make a small change in the time of the class, but just for next Saturday. We're going to start the class 1 hour earlier. So I'm not going to say all the time zones, but that'll be 8 o'clock in the Pacific coast of the US and 11 o'clock on the eastern coast of the US and 9 o'clock in Nicaragua. So please make note of that. The class will be shifted 1 hour earlier, but just for next week so that we can accommodate the East Asian time zones. And thank you so much to Anna, Magda, Jill, and Nan for being our solid interpretation team. I'm going to say that now because now I'm going to pass the floor over to Jenny, Cardina, and Betty for the rest of the class. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Good morning from Los Angeles, everyone. It's an honor to have heard from these two revolutionary women leaders of the ATC and to be here with you all. So we today, I'm Jenny, but me, Cardina, and Betty today are going to share a bit more about the work of Friends of the ATC as a solidarity collective, and then lead a conversation about how we can continue to build solidarity with Nicaragua as participants of the Ben Linder Solidarity School. So I am going to share some photos and a bit about my experience, and then Cardina and Betty will introduce themselves and their experience. So I'm going to share, if I can. Do you see my screen?
Yep.
Great. Okay. So I have been involved with Friends of the ATC for about 2.5 years now. And I am very grateful for the ATC for forming me politically and really informing my understanding of internationalism. And I was able to go on the January 2019 delegation and the July 2019 delegation, and also have an extended stay in July through the Friends of the ATC internship, where I stayed with Revolution community in Carazo, where the families and also spent time with Esperanza in Matagalpa, and learned about their work in forming unions and cooperatives and promoting agroecology at their regional agroecology school. I was also able to go to the Gloria Quintanilla Cooperative, which Lola is part of. She wasn't able to be here today, but I can attest that the coffee all over the country is really good. It's delicious. So hopefully you all get to try it. And also was able to spend time with the national office, the team there who do really, really good work. So as a solidarity network, we do believe the best way for people to build solidarity with Nicaragua is by going there and spending time with the people and seeing the gains of the revolution for themselves, both in the city and in the countryside. So we hope you all get to go on a delegation sometime when the conditions are less horrible for travel, and so that you are able to also drink the coffee, and even better, you can go and with all of the knowledge you learned from this course. And on our delegations, we both spend time there and understand better Nicaragua, but also take time to think about what we can do to construct solidarity after the delegation. So, for example, in January of 2019, we were accompanied by 8 of the Latin American Institute students, the YALA students, and we were very inspired by their commitment to agroecology and transforming society. So afterwards, what we did was we decided to fundraise for their school. So we did that. These are some photos of us with them. And then on the July delegation, we, inspired by recognizing many media lies about Nicaragua, we decided to do a project of testimonies. So every place we visited on the delegation, we collected testimonies of the people of the ATC there, and have since been in the process of publishing them into packets. So we have published packets for 3 different places, and the 4th one will be out soon. So here are just photos of the testimonies. This is from the SLE Federation. And this is from the community of Marlon Alvarado. So hoping to share the real experience of Nicaragua with people through these testimonies. And we are in the process of trying to promote them and trying to have as many people read them as possible. So please read them and share them with your friends. That's a little bit about my experience. And now I pass it to Karina to introduce.
Thank you, Jenny. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm Karina. I'm based in Texas, and I first started working with the Friends of the ATC after the summer of 2019. I interned with the Friends of the ATC for 2.5 months the summer of 2019, where I spent most of my time in the small community of Marlon Alvarado in the municipality of Santa Teresa and Carazo. And here I got to really see firsthand how the work of the ATC looks like for a localized level in their project to transition this community into more agroecological practices of cultivation. So in this community of small campesinos who are small producers and are practicing or like moving towards food sovereignty, I got to see and experience what it looks like and what it feels like to work in the countryside. So while I was there, I was able to work with the campesinos in the field and see the work of the ATC as well in other parts of Nicaragua. So during this internship, I got to travel up to Esteli and meet the sindicatos, the syndicates in tobacco factories there, and how the ATC has informed them of their rights as workers and has continued to work with them in organizing workers there. I also got to travel to Santa Julia, where I met the Women's Cooperative of Gloria Quintanilla. And I really got to witness the intense leadership of women and in the peasantry and in the countryside in organizing their communities. And I think in Santa Julia, that was like a huge thing that really informed me of the ATC's work in also political education, and how that's a very integral part of the practices of agroecology and a testament to the principles of La Via Campesina and CLOC. So this was a very impactful experience for me. And so I've been working with the Friends of the ATC for about a year now. I work in the communications team, and I look forward to working with some of you in the coming weeks as well, or even longer, in your solidarity work with the ATC and the Friends of ATC. So that's a little bit about my experience. And I'll pass the mic over to Betty now. Thank you.
Thanks, Karina and Jenny. Hi, everyone. My name is Betty Furman. So I'm the Global Movements Program Coordinator at YHunger, and the Global Movements Program supports social movements to advance food justice, food sovereignty, and the right to food all around the world. I'm glad to be with you all today. So I got the opportunity to be a part of the delegation back in January 2019, where I met Jenny and Erica in person, which was awesome. And yeah, it was great to be a part of the diverse group of people that was able to come together to learn from how the peasants in Nicaragua have been using agroecology, see firsthand food sovereignty in action, and see the foundation of the society, right, that they've been building, as we've all been learning since the Sandinista Revolution in 1979. And I think it's been very inspiring to witness the power and learn and continue to learn about how agrarian reform and food sovereignty has really changed the lives of the folks in Nicaragua. And for me, the first few days we spent learning about the social and political context of Nicaragua and the work of the ATC and La Via Campesina at the Francisco Morazan School really made a difference as we then spent the times in the different communities, because our delegation split up after the first couple of days. And with my small delegation, we got the opportunity to stay at the Marlon Alvarado community, which is made up of strong women that have learned through their involvement with the ATC about agroecological practices. And it's something that was very clear was the amount of knowledge and how these women are able to share amongst each other. And it was awesome to see also how, like we learned last week or the week before, how the government's Bono Productivos program, the Zero Hunger program, was is improving and increasing the role of women in food production to provide support for themselves and their families. So it was awesome to just see all that we are learning about in action. And the best part of the experience also was watching the students of the ALAs interacting with the older farmers and learning and them teaching each other about the methods to best use on their land in order to help them care for the soil and make it richer, right, for food production. So it was awesome to just be a part of this in action learning exchange and see the full meaning of agroecology in action and what it means to nurture and care for the soil and the people. So it was just awesome to be a part of that. And I'm glad to just continue to be part of the ATC and continue to support in local and international levels to help us build solidarity and support the struggles and initiatives. And I hope that you guys are excited and will continue to join us as we go forward.
Awesome. Yeah, so these are just a few of the ways that we work to construct international solidarity, in addition to lots of work here on the US, like Karina said, in social media, communications. publicizing as much as we can about the ATC. So we are inviting you to join us, to be part of our collective, to be part of this work. And so today we want to kind of start thinking more about how we can, or participants can be part of the collective, and how we can carry out Ben Linder's legacy of solidarity. So we want to hear all of your ideas, but we also thought it would be good to break out into groups that focus on particular themes. So just to break them down a bit, some of the things we do, one would be fundraising for YALA, like I mentioned, so the January 2019 delegates did. Just as a little background, we tried to fundraise as an act of solidarity with the ATC, and because we believe in their work and we believe in the organization in Nicaragua, but we are all volunteers, so we definitely, it's not our main focus, and we're definitely not rolling in dough, but it is something we try to do at least a few times a year. And then the second point would be media, so more about like countering or showing the true narrative of Nicaragua. That is not the narrative that the US media puts out, so that when people see headlines that say that Nicaragua is doing bad, they'll know it's a lie. And then the third thing would be trying to figure out how to best use the materials that we have from the Ben Linder Solidarity School, including recordings from the classes and the suggested reading materials. So I think we're going to, just for logistical ease, we're gonna break people out randomly. But if people are particularly interested in one area, they can write us in the chat or by email if that is how they want to be more involved going forward. And I know we have different languages spoken here, English and Spanish. So we're going to break by language, and we propose that because a lot of the Spanish speakers come from organizations who have their own models and tactics for building international solidarity, we thought it could be, well, an open conversation about that, like how their organizations do propose that, and thinking about how they can share the organizations from, or the materials from the school with their organizations, and the knowledge that they carry now. So I think we'll break out now. And Betty, Karina, and I will be, and Mercedes will be in each of the groups to help facilitate. I would just say thank you all for participating in this. I know the time was cut short, but it's just the start of conversations. And hopefully next time or sometime, or maybe just by writing, we can share what we all talked about in our groups. And again, if anyone is particularly interested in one of the topics but was not put in that group, you can just reach out to us and we can coordinate with you individually. That's all from me.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias.